Yo, Havoc Nation has arrived. What's going on, everybody? It's your boy, Los Angel of Havoc, aka Letato, the one and only High Priest of the congregation. Welcome back to another installment of Letato Clips, where we've got a little bit of everything. Guardians, we finally arrived at the roundup of roundups. Today we're going to be talking about Heresy Act 1 and all the changes coming to Destiny 2 when it launches. So it's going to be a long one. We're going to be covering exotic changes, weapon perk changes, Crucible changes, the works. We're going to be talking about the new activity coming with Heresy. We're going to be talking about the episodic artifact. This one's thick, dummy thick, if you will. So why don't you pull up a chair, make yourself comfortable, make sure you got yourself some snacks, some coffee or juice, whatever you prefer. Now, before we get started, I'd like to ask if you could do me a solid by giving this video a thumbs up. It's a little bit, but it does go a long way in terms of helping the channel grow. And since this video is going to be a long one, I figured I'd get that out of the way in the beginning. If you like what I do here on the channel, if you want to stay up to date with any updates at all or anything that I do here, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Now, without any further ado, let's talk Heresy. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the video, Act 1 of Heresy launches on Tuesday, February 4th at Reset. It will have weekly story and content delivery similar to previous seasons and episodes, but the majority of activities will still be available at launch. However, these activities will evolve along with the weekly story. Each week will also feature a seasonal challenge that rewards a new tier of seasonal weapon, and all reprised weapons will be available at launch, with the second half of the seasonal weapons being made available when Act 2 releases. Bungie has also mentioned that in Heresy, Acts will not have a fixed length, i.e. Act 2 will last 3 weeks as opposed to lasting 5 to 6 weeks as we've seen in previous episodes and seasons. Speaking of activities, we must talk about the Nether, which is the new episodic activity releasing along with Act 1 of Heresy. It has been inspired by the Shattered Realm and the Coil from past seasons, and we are going to be returning to the Dreadnought. That's why we're going back to where we slew the Taken King. Now, it was described in the developer live stream as a roguelite activity, and the Nether looks to vary the experience of each playthrough with randomized patrol zones, encounters, and objectives. The Nether will have 3 modes of play, and throughout a run, Guardians will have more health and shields, but healing is restricted, ammo pickups are limited, revive tokens will be enabled, but they will also have limited availability, though there will be ways and paths to earn more as you go through the activity. Players will also find unique modifiers and boons to enhance their experience within the Nether. Boons will provide a dramatic increase to player capabilities. However, some boons can also carry negative side effects, so you must choose them wisely. In addition to the Nether, we're also going to be getting a new dungeon. Sundered Doctrine goes live Friday, February 7th at Reset. Contest mode will be enabled for the first 48 hours, and players will need to be at 1995 power to be at the required power cap for all encounters. Assemble a fire team of 3 players and start the Sundered Doctrine dungeon in contest mode from the planet system map. It's been confirmed that Sundered Doctrine does take place within a Rolk's Pyramid inside Savathun's throne world, so that is more than likely where you will need to launch the dungeon from. Once the final encounter is complete, the fire team must loot the final chests or their finish may not be recorded. A team's official finish will be recorded when they loot the final chest. That, my friends, will be the completion of the dungeon race. The winning team of World's First for this dungeon race will need to have at least 1 member of the fire team to have completed and received loot for every encounter, and it must be the first time that all members of the fire team have completed the activity. Fire teams that complete the Sundered Doctrine in contest mode will also earn a special emblem and are guaranteed the dungeon exotic weapon drop. Normal mode will be enabled once the first fire team completes the dungeon. Next up, we're going to be talking about ability tuning, and we're going to start with the new subclass verb for Arc, Bolt Charge. Bolt Charge is a stacking buff that builds up over time up to 10 stacks. And when fully charged, ability damage triggers an arc bolt similar in strength to solar ignitions, but with a smaller AoE and more uptime. Gaining stacks of bolt charge also restores melee energy, and it's already been integrated into the existing arc and prismatic subclass ability suites, as well as the new arc aspects for warlocks and titans. With that being the perfect segue, let's discuss the new aspects for warlocks and titans. Titans will be getting Storm's Keep. With this aspect, casting your class ability grants a moderate number of bolt charge stacks to you and nearby allies. Also, while behind your barricade, you and your allies gain stacks of bolt charge over time, and any weapon damage will discharge max stacks of bolt charge. I can see this pairing very well with things like rally barricades or even towering barricades and Titan's ramparts. Warlocks will be getting the Ionic Sentry aspect. With it, defeat targets with arc abilities or weapons to charge up an Ionic Sentry. Once charged, activate your grenade to then deploy a powerful arc turret which blinds on impact and sends out bolts of lightning that chain to nearby enemies and grant stacks of bolt charge when it defeats enemies. Looking at the gameplay from the live stream and also the sample, looks kind of crazy. But of course, I gotta save the best for last. For my hunters, we'll be getting On the Prowl. And with On the Prowl, going invisible marks nearby enemies as priority targets for players and their allies. If you play Crucible, you do not have to worry. It does not create wall hacks. That being said, defeating priority targets creates a cloud of smoke that weakens enemies and makes players and their allies invisible. Defeating priority targets also grants players and allies increased weapon reload speed and stability for a short duration, as well as some ability energy. I can see this going absolutely insane, especially if you create a combination or a build around Gerfalcons and, say, Collective Obligation. Just throwing that out there into the void. Now, since we're on Hunters, we'll go over some ability tuning coming to Hunters as well. With Tempest Strike, it now grants a bolt charge stack when killing a jolted target and also deals 57% more damage in PvE. Disorienting Blow now grants bolt charge stacks on hit and also now deals AoE damage instead of a single target, and its blind AoE is increased from 6 meters to 9.6 meters. Arc Staff's Reflecting Attacks now grants a stack of bolt charge, and Ascension gains a third fragment slot on Arc. It already had 3 on Prismatic, but now it's getting that extra fragment slot on the Arc subclass as well. It also now triggers effects from multiple dodge abilities when activated. Ensnaring Slam also now activates effects from certain dodge abilities, and Threaded Spectre's Clone now has an increased PvE damage resistance. For Titans, Barricades now have an increased blast damage resistance when standing behind them. Taunt strength and range no longer decrease over time. Juggernaut now grants splash damage resistance across PvP and PvE, as well as a general damage resistance in PvE. Blocking damage with the Juggernaut shield also grants a stack of bolt charge. Ballistic Slam has a reduced sprint time required for activation. Damage now scales with distance traveled, and PvE damage has been increased by 30%, and each enemy hit grants a bolt charge stack all the way up to 10 max. Word of Dawn now provides a weakening pulse when activated. For the Unbreakable aspect, it has a faster charge rate for offensive throws when blocking damage. The max throw damage has been increased by 20%. Shield health has been increased for better durability. There's a faster Void Overshield charge rate when holding the shield, and throw now costs half of a grenade charge instead of a full charge. Orbs of Power creation cooldown has been increased when the Sentinel shield is active. And lastly, I know this one hurts, Consecration's damage for both Scorch Wave and Slam Wave has been reduced by 55%. RIP. Back to my Warlocks. Storm Trance's non-champion PvE damage has been increased by 20%. Chaos Reach's non-champion PvE damage has been increased by 15%. Lightning Surge no longer amplifies on cast and instead now grants a stack of bolt charge for each enemy hit. And its damage versus PvE combatants has been increased by 30%. Handheld Supernova's total projectile count has been increased from 5 to 9. The width and height of the cone's blast has been increased as well. Projectile damage in PvP has been reduced from 20 to 15 per projectile to account for this change. Now we're moving into some more general subclass changes overall. For Solar, the damage bonus provided by Radiant has been reduced from 25% to 20% in PvE. However, the Well of Radiance damage bonus remains unchanged. For Stasis, Frost Armor has increased damage resistance per stack from 4.5% to 6.25%. So at max stacks, damage resistance can go from 36% to 50%. However, this is a change that is only effective in PvE. PvP values remain unchanged. Arc, as you can imagine, has quite a few changes, especially with the introduction of a new subclass verb. For Amplified, while players are amplified, PvE combatants are now less accurate against you. This is also similar to how the Manticore's exotic effect works while in air. Also, while amplified, players will now have a 15% damage resistance against PvE combatants. For the Spark of Discharge, there's been an added effect where picking up an ionic trace grants a stack of bolt charge. For Spark of Momentum, again, added effect where sliding over ammo bricks now grants a stack of bolt charge. However, they've removed the bespoke melee energy bonus from sliding over ammo bricks since each stack of bolt charge also comes with bonus melee energy. They've also reduced the amount of time you need to be sliding to activate the Spark of Momentum. For the Spark of Frequency, there's been an added effect where while amplified, you gain a bonus stack of bolt charge from all sources in addition to the previous effect. For Spark of Volts, they've added an effect where finishers grant a stack of bolt charge in addition to granting amplified. And Spark of Ions has added an effect where targets defeated with bolt charge will also make an ionic trace in addition to the previous effect. Much like with Arc, Prismatic is also getting some changes based around bolt charge as well. The Facet of Hope can now be activated by bolt charge. The Facet of Purpose now grants a stack of bolt charge on orb pickup when an Arc Super is equipped instead of granting amplified. And the Facet of Sacrifice can also now be activated by bolt charge. Next up, we've got to talk about the new episodic artifact, the Tablet of Ruin. For those of you who don't know, I'm a big Hive fan. I love Hive lore. The Tablets of Ruin are an integral part of Hive lore because they are what orcs use in order to commune with the Witness in order to learn the power of the Taken. The Tablets of Ruin have only appeared twice in-game before this. Once in Golgoroth's boss room, that's actually the stone that powers up his white mechanic, and then also another was recovered in Savathun's throne world throughout the Witch Queen campaign. Needless to say, I am very excited to read this artifact's lore tab and to get more darkness lore, more Hive lore, something. But we're going to be talking about the artifact itself and what all we will be getting with it. The first column, of course, as always, goes over the champion mods that we'll be getting for this episode. We'll have Unstoppable Fusion for linear fusion rifles and standard fusion rifles, Overload machine guns, Piercing or anti-barrier sidearms, anti-barrier sniper rifle, and Unstoppable glaive. In column 2, we will have Overclock and Load, where while you are amplified or have bolt charge, arc weapons gain increased handling and reload speed. Deep Alchemy, where weapons with the Subjugation origin trait gain stability and reload speed for a short duration when hitting any target. These weapons are also overcharged when that modifier is active. Volatile Marksman, where Rapid Void weapon precision hits and Rapid Void weapon final blows grant volatile rounds, and Volatile detonations grant class ability energy when boost is active. Legend Incarnate, where weapons with the Time Lost Magazine origin trait gain bonus damage. These weapons are also overcharged when that modifier is active. And Unraveling Orbs, where picking up an Orb of Power or a Tangle grants strand weapons unraveling rounds. In the third column, we have Hold the Line, where while surrounded, machine guns and glaives gain increased reload speed and stability, and final blows heal you. We'll have Dielectric, where defeating arc debuff targets grants bolt charge, and rapidly defeating arc debuff targets spawns an Orb of Power and heals a small portion of health when boost is active. King's Vestige, where defeating powerful Taken loads your weapon with Taken energy, and the next time you fire, you will launch 3 Taken Seeker rounds that disrupt and exhaust targets. Disruptor Spike, which improves the effects of Exhaust and Sever, lowering a target's damage output even further. And Photonic Flare, where defeating an exhausted or severed target with arc damage releases a blinding burst. In column number 4, we have Dreadful Finisher, where defeating powerful combatants with your finisher spawns special ammo for you and your allies. Defeated subjugators, tormentors, and champions will also spawn more ammo. Malign Harvest, where rapidly applying volatile causes your next instance of void weapon damage to create a weakening burst. Flashover, where when you gain a maximum bolt charge, you also become amplified, Lightning bolts also deal more damage. Horde shuttle, where damaging unraveled targets with a weapon occasionally spawns a threadling. Nobel, where rapid glaive melee final blows grants special ammo glaives additional ammo. Blocking damage with glaives also increases their melee damage to targets. And finally, we have column number 5. We have particle reconstruction, where dealing sustained damage with fusion rifles or linear fusion rifles partially refills the magazine from reserves and grants them bonus damage for a short duration against that target. Elemental Supercharger, where defeating exhausted or severed targets with weapons that match your super element grant super energy. Heavy Ordnance Regeneration, where dealing sustained damage to targets with a heavy machine gun or rocket launcher grants damage resistance and increased grenade and melee regeneration for a short duration. Defibrillating Blast, where stunning a champion grants maximum stacks of bolt charge. It also triggers an arc bolt that heals you and jolts combatants that it damages. And Void Flux, where defeating weakened targets with a void weapon applies volatile to nearby targets. Powerful targets increase the radius of the explosion. Again, these void combinations are going to be crazy. Small note, Exhaust is a new debuff that causes targets to deal reduced outgoing damage. Exhaust is applied by either disrupting combatants or by weapons with the Psycho Hack or Subjugation origin traits. Next up, we got PvP changes to discuss, y'all. First off, Trials of Osiris is getting a rework. Instead of the flawless base system that we currently have, they're going to be moving to a get 7 wins on a card system that rewards win streaks with multiple tiers and exclusive aesthetic rewards for higher win streaks. This is to provide a selectable alternative experience that is closer to Iron Banner in terms of reward structure and matchmaking to get more players into the Trials ecosystem. The new rewards will feature an all-new armor set, Ghost Shell, Ship, Sparrow, and Emblem. The goal here is to simplify engagement and matchmaking systems. There's also going to be 2 new weapons entering the Trials loot pool this episode: the Keen Thistle Solar Aggressive Sniper Rifle and Exalted Truth Void Adaptive Hand Cannon. There's also going to be quality of life improvements to the Dominion game mode, which you can read further about in the links in the description. Also in the Crucible, all post-game scoreboards have been updated to reflect the stats that they feel will help players better understand their performance. In competitive, wins and losses will either add or remove a base value of 100 points. Performance bonuses are now linked to player score and efficiency. There's going to be a contribution scaler added to reward players who had a greater impact on the game's overall outcome and provide quitter compensation for remaining players who finish a match after someone leaves. The effect is only positive. A skill modifier is also being implemented in order to adjust points based on team skill differences. The new competitive playlist weapon reward is called Regiex's S-Stock. It's a Stasis PR-55 frame pulse rifle, and there will also be 2 new emblems to be earned in the competitive playlist as well. When it comes to the collision game mode, the following changes will be taking effect. Zone spawn logic, which prevents new zones from spawning too close to the active zone. Contesting change, where zones now flip to neutral when contested, which will stop point accumulation. Zone preview time has been increased from 15 seconds to 20 seconds before opening for better positioning. The quit protection timer has been extended to 90 seconds to ensure loss forgiveness if an AFK player is kicked early. A new game mode, Slow Capture Collision, is going to be going live in private matches at the launch of Heresy and will become available in Crucible Labs at the start of Act 2. In this mode, zones will take longer to secure. A single point will be awarded per capture instead of continuous scoring. Zones will rotate after capture, and the first team with 7 captures wins. This may be a potential replacement for the current version of Collision, depending on player feedback. The quick play rotators are also getting an update this time around. There will be 3 weekly rotating nodes with open skill matchmaking. Quick Play 6v6, which includes modes like Clash, Supremacy, Zone Control, Rift, and Relic. Small Team Quick Play 2v2 or 4v4, which includes modes like Doubles, Elimination variants, and Competitive Respawn variants. And Modified Quick Play, which is 3v3 or 6v6, which features Sandbox altered modes like Checkmate, Hardware, and other modifiers. There will also be events and rotations. Iron Banner will now be 1 week at a time with 2 playlists, Control, and a Quick Play rotator. The active dates will be from February 18th to the 25th, April 1st to the 8th, and April 29th to May 6th. Other events and rotators include Trials of Osiris, which of course replaces small team quick play during its run. Guardian Games, when it's live, will replace quick play with Supremacy. And Crucible Labs will now be part of the weekly quick play rotations instead of a separate playlist. There will be new playlist weapons in the form of the Warlord Spear Arc Adaptive Trace Rifle and Peace Bond Stasis Adaptive Burst Sidearm for Iron Banner, as well as the Joxer's Longsword Void Heavy Burst Pulse Rifle, which will drop from General Crucible playlists. Finally, we have some general quality of life updates for the Crucible. Fire team balancing has been improved and now relies less on average lobby rank. There's been some map weighting adjustments, so for 6v6, Vostok and Multiplex appear less, and Burnout appears more. In competitive, Citadel, Multiplex, and Radiant Cliffs Clash have been removed from the rotation. To compensate for this, the frequency for Burnout and Dead Cliffs Clash has been increased. And lastly, Revives no longer subtract points from the opposing team in Showdown. Now, being as though we just mentioned Crucible's new playlist rewards, I figured it only appropriate to go into the other playlist activity rewards that we're going to be getting with Heresy. Nightfalls will be getting the Lotus Eater Void Rocket Assisted Sidearm, as well as the Palindrome Arc Adaptive Hand Cannon, making its triumphant return to Destiny 2. We're also going to be getting the Sinosure Strand Aggressive Rocket Launcher for Vanguard Ops, and the Backfang Arc Rapid Fire Glaive for Gambit. Next up on the agenda, we have to talk about changes coming to exotic armor. For my hunters, sealed Ahamkara Grasps have been reworked for weapon swapping synergy. Powered melees and finishers grant Nightmare Fuel, which boosts handling and airborne effectiveness, and freshly drawn weapons deal extra damage and grant Nightmare Fuel on final blows. Gaining Nightmare Fuel also reloads all holstered weapons. Gwyson Vests now return super energy on hits as well as kills before becoming invisible. Exiting invisibility near enemies also now emits a cloud of weakening smoke, and this effect works in and out of your super. For Renewal Grasps, they've doubled the frost armor gain rate while inside of enhanced dust-filled grenades. Foe Tracer's damage buff duration has been increased from 10 seconds to 15 seconds. The multiple dodge charges provided by Radiant Dance Machines has been reworked to count as real dodges for the purposes of perks and aspects. Radiant Dance Machines also now buffs airborne effectiveness, hipfire mobility, range, and accuracy for primary weapons. Multi-kills with primary weapons also refund dodge energy and grant extra dodge charges when dodge energy is full. And for the exotic cloak Relativism, Spirit of Galenor's max super energy refund for Silk Strike and Golden Gun has been reduced to 30% from 50% to prevent excessive chaining, and Spirit of the Foe Tracer has inherited Foe Tracer's updated buff. Moving on to Titans, we'll begin with Titan's Ramparts. They removed several downsides applied by the main perk of the exotic Assault Barricade to bring it in line with base towering barricade behavior. The end result has been a towering barricade that you can shoot through with no issues while Titan's Ramparts is equipped. Other PvE changes include barricade health being increased from 400 to 500, barricade cooldown is no longer increased, and barricade duration is no longer decreased. And in PvP, the damage Guardians can deal to a barricade has been increased from 125% to 160% to maintain balance. For Eternal Warrior, final blows with the Fists of Havoc now extend super duration. With Ursa Furiosa, blocking with Unbreakable now grants grenade energy instead of super energy, and the amount of energy refunded scales with the damage blocked. Khepri's Horn now emits 3 solar waves instead of 1. The waves have enhanced tracking, and damaged enemies create sunspots. This includes Guardians as well. A solar super is required in order to activate this effect. An Insurmountable Skull Fort now grants melee energy even on non-final blows. The energy return varies. You get the most from powered melees, then knockout melee hits, and then the least from basic melee and glaive hits. For Stoicism, the Titan exotic mark, Spirit of the Bear inherits the changes to Ursa Furiosa, and Spirit of the Horn inherits Khepri's Horn's changes, with the exception being that if you have Thruster equipped, it emits 4 waves in an X pattern. Now for my Warlocks, Storm Dancer's Brace has a double damage boost per stack of Ascending Amplitude. Ionic Blink cost has been reduced by 50% during Storm Trance, and Super Energy refunded has been reduced from 50% to 30%. The Geomag Stabilizers now have a new perk where sprinting near max bolt charge tops it off, and it starts at 6 stacks. The visual effects have returned where the boots will spark while sprinting at near max bolt charge, and the super energy gained from picking up ionic traces with this exotic equipped has been increased from 2% to 7%. Secant filaments now grant class ability energy per kill while Devour is active. The healing turret provided by Speaker's Sight now only targets damaged allies and no longer heals full health teammates. For Verity's Brow, Death Throws now decays gradually instead of expiring all at once, with each stack having a set duration before downgrading. The bonus grenade recharge per second scales with stacks as well. And for the exotic Bond Solipsism, Spirit of the Filaments and Spirit of Verity inherit the changes that have been added to their exotic counterparts. Moving on, now we've got to talk about weapon changes. For aim assistance, aiming at a target for a short time will now prevent another target moving very quickly across your reticle from dragging your aim off of it. This is a controller-only change. As far as PvE damage tuning for different weapon archetypes, we have Scout Rifles getting a buff of 15% versus minors and 30% versus majors. Auto Rifles are getting a 10% buff versus minors and majors. SMGs are getting a 5% buff versus minors. And additionally, in the update, they've also increased the base magazine size by 10 to 15% based on the mag stat. Trace Rifles are getting a 20% buff versus minors, and Linear Fusion Rifles are getting a 10% buff against all combatants. Glaives are getting a significant increase to aim assist, aim magnetism, and damage fall-off ranges across the board. They've also improved glaive projectile hit registration, and they've increased the baseline effects of all stat values for handling speeds, including the shield ready speed, draw and stow speed, magazine size, projectile speed, and reload speed. Also, the final hit of the melee combo deals double damage for glaives, and this hit also inflicts much more flinch and PvE combatants. Aggressive frame fusion rifles now fire 3 bursts of 4 pellets in increasingly wide spreads. They've also increased the minimum damage when fully outside of damage fall-off range from 45% to 65%. Aggressive frame fusion rifles also now have an increased range fall-off start by 4 meters relative to normal fusions, and an increased range fall-off end by 3 meters relative to other fusions. They've also increased the damage versus minors and majors by 15% relative to normal fusion rifles. For support frame auto rifles, range now increases how far away you can heal another Guardian. For rocket-assisted frame sidearms, they've reduced the PvE detonation damage by 45%. The PvE impact damage has been increased by 100%. They've reduced the aim assist fall-off and maximum distance by 8 meters, and they have reduced the magnetism fall-off and maximum distance by 8 meters. They've also reduced damage by 30% versus boss, vehicle, and mini-boss targets. Though Buried Bloodline's body shot damage is unaffected, critical hit damage has actually been buffed by 8% for Buried Bloodline. As for the range stat, it was vestigial to the weapon subfamily, so it has been removed. Range Masterworks and Enhanced Intrinsics will be replaced with something a little bit more appropriate. Next, we have exotic weapon changes that are coming to Heresy. For the Wrench Driver, picking up a bounty tag will now grant 1 ammo to the magazine. Also, triggering Lagrangian Sight by picking up a bounty tag adds 6 ammo to the magazine the first time you trigger it. It returns to adding 1 ammo per tag on extensions while the buff remains active. For Delicate Tomb, they've increased the chance to make an ionic trace from minor combatants from 4% to 10%. They've also increased the PvE damage bonus on the Tempest Cascade shot from 30% to 100%. The timer for Tempest Cascade has also been removed, and it now lasts until it's fired. Darcy is getting a new catalyst perk added called Network Targeting. Hits with Personal Assistant active grant you and nearby allies improved overall weapon performance and precision damage with non-exotic sniper rifles. This improves recoil, flinch, target acquisition, handling, and precision damage, stacks up to 5 times, and Darcy will also get the buff itself. Darcy user will also get a 15% damage buff after granting 5 stacks to a teammate. The class exotic glaives, Edge of Action, Edge of Concurrence, and Edge of Intent are all seeing updates as well. As a general update for all 3, Special Shot is no longer tied to glaive energy and is instead now triggered on 6 weapon hits to allow for the special reload. These hits can increment off of both shots and melee hits. For Edge of Concurrence, the effects of the Jolting Feedback trait have been added to the intrinsic perk. For Edge of Action, the effects of Destabilizing Rounds has been added to its intrinsic perk. And for Edge of Intent, the effects of Incandescent has been added to the intrinsic perk. They've also added a Cure Pulse to the Special Shot Impact, and the Healing Turret no longer targets allies with full health. Allies need some damage done to their shields to be eligible targets. Centrifuge's magazine size has been increased to 45. For Dead Messenger, Hard Light, and Borealis, the fundamental perks now has a new effect. It now grants a 30% damage buff, albeit 10% in PvP, to the weapon for 10 seconds when you apply or receive an elemental keyword that matches the currently selected damage type of the weapon. They've removed the effect where it grants different stats based on the current element. For Borealis only, they've increased the stability by 20 and aim assist by 10 to permanently grant it the void element bonus that it will no longer have access to, since apparently Borealis is a sleeper pick in PvP. This bonus was selected over Arc since there are more ways to gain handling. Now, I don't know why they are tempting fate by playing with this next one, but we have some updates coming to Telesto. For Harbinger's Pulse, it now only refills Telesto's ammo from reserves instead of Telesto and your kinetic slot weapon. This effect now triggers with any void final blow, and final blow requirement has been increased from 2 to 3. However, Telesto final blows count as double. In other words, this will trigger from 2 Telesto final blows, 1 Telesto final blow plus 1 other void final blow, or 3 other void final blows. And the multi-kill timer has increased from 2 seconds to 4.5 seconds. Telesto's Catalyst will be getting a new perk called Harbinger's Sheath. After 3 activations of Harbinger's Pulse, special reload with the weapon to cause a rain of Telesto projectiles on your next direct hit. I'm really hoping this doesn't break the game, but moving on. For Vex Caliber, triggering Perpetual Loophole by scoring a melee kill while your Overshield is active will also now fill your glaive energy to full. They've slightly increased the Void Overshield trickle-on rate to nearby allies and yourself when guarding. They've also increased the potency of Vex Caliber's secret innate advantages against the Vex. Vex Caliber's secret damage bonus when striking with its projectiles against a certain enemy faction has been increased from 10% to 25% to match Wish Ender and Malfeasance, and Vex Caliber now briefly disorients non-boss Vex with its melee attack. Wardcliff Coil is getting a new intrinsic effect that grants 1 stack of bolt charge to all nearby allies for every 2 rockets fired. This equals out to about 4 stacks per trigger pull. For the Queenbreaker, players can now special reload at any time to swap between scopes. Marksman Sights retains the previous behavior of firing a single shot that chains to nearby targets and blinds them. The range of the chain has increased from 8 meters to 10 meters to make the chaining easier. Combat Sights now alters the weapon's fire to a 3-round burst at a charge time of 533. Dealing sustained damage on a target decreases this charge time down to 300. And there is no loss to damage while doing this, and it's useful for quickly dealing damage to bosses or other high health targets. The scope that you select in the inspection screen will determine which scope is active by default when spawning into an activity. The Colony, another classic D2 exotic, is getting a buff. They've increased the detonation damage by 40%, which puts its damage per shot a little bit above legendary drum grenade launchers. They've also increased the number of bots spawned by 1 for all enemy tiers except for players. For Quicksilver Storm, the number of shots required to trigger a rocket has been reduced by 17%. For the Legend of Acreus, the very first raid exotic we got in Destiny 2, they've reduced the spread angle by 33%, and they've also increased the maximum projectile range from 12 to 18 meters. For the Fourth Horseman, they've reduced the rate of fire slightly to give more control over wasting shots, and it will now load ammo from reserves to the magazine per kill. For the Lord of Wolves, they've increased the range and reduced its base damage. They've also removed the accuracy penalties from the standard fire mode. Release the Wolves now triggers on hipfire instead of special reload, and while it is active, it fires in full auto, with greatly increased damage and rate of fire, but with reduced accuracy and range. Catalyst for Lord of Wolves now has reload speed and stability boosts built in. When Release the Wolves is active with the Catalyst, dealing damage to targets also scorches them, and when aiming down sights, defeating targets spreads Scorch to nearby combatants. And lastly, Cloud Strike has added behavior to its Stormbringer perk, which rapid precision hits create a lightning storm at the point of impact and grants a stack of bolt charge. They've also added behavior to the Mortal Polarity perk, where precision final blows generate a lightning bolt at the target's location and now grants a moderate amount of bolt charge. And for Thunderlord, they've added a behavior to its Rain Havoc perk, where final blows with this weapon generate lightning strikes from above. The lightning strikes grant a stack of bolt charge, and it is strong against overload champions. Now, before I continue, I want to thank all of you that have made it this far in this video. This is a very long video, and I promise we're almost at the end. I've just got a couple more things to cover, so just hang in there with me. Next, we're going to be talking about weapon perk changes. For destabilizing rounds, they will now grant volatile rounds for 2 seconds if any targets are hit by the volatile burst from the initial final blow. They've also reduced the internal cooldown for destabilizing rounds from 4 seconds to 1.5 seconds. Full Court now scales the detonation and burn damage of area denial grenade launchers, which for those of you who are not familiar with what that is, those are the legendary iterations of Witherhoard. For Ambitious Assassin, the multi-kill and reload timers have both been removed, and for Flash Counter, it's been reworked to read, taking damage after guarding emits a disorienting blast. It no longer requires a timed input or melee to trigger, and it deals moderate damage in a large cone in front of you, disorienting combatants. Now before I go, there are some other honorable mentions. There's a Star Wars collab going live at the launch of Heresy. There will be new armor ornaments, a ghost shell, sparrow, and ship, all themed around a galaxy far, far away. Also, Vogue weapons, aka weapons from the Vault of Glass, will now be craftable. The reprised weapons that we are getting this time around are from the Season of Arrivals. And when it comes to the Nether activity, the reward system will be based around an item called the Tome of Want. Now, the Destiny 2 team did put out a post kind of detailing everything that will go into using the Tome of Want, but I'm going to link that in the description of the video because it's already been a good little while here. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'm actually pretty excited for Heresy to drop. Looking forward to trying some new builds and just returning to the Dreadnought, to be honest. I'm interested to see what it looks like in Destiny 2, especially with the way that they've changed it and tweaked it and everything around this new activity. But let me know what you guys think in the comments, and I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Again, if you liked it, please be sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more content like this, you like what I do here on the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next video. My name is Lost Angel of Havoc. Thank you so much for watching Late Tato Clips. We will see you next time, my friends. Same late time, same late channel.